Let me tell you the single biggest secret that every 8-figure CEO learns when they first start to scale their business. Here it is. You have to spend more to get more. In other words, if you want to acquire more customers, you're going to need to invest more in marketing. But how do you do that the right way? How do you know how to set a marketing budget? How do you know how much you should spend to acquire a customer? And how are you gonna make sure that all of these investments actually pay off? Well, that's exactly what we're gonna cover in this video. So when it comes to investing in marketing and customer acquisition, one of kind of the tried and true rules of thumb is you wanna have a 3-to-1 LTV to CAC ratio. What does that mean? LTV is simply lifetime customer value and CAC is customer acquisition cost. So the basic idea is that as long as you are acquiring a customer for about 1/3 of what that customer is worth, you should be golden. But here's the problem with that. For most businesses, for most entrepreneurs, we don't even know what the lifetime value of a given customer is. This is something you get to figure out after years and years and years in business, and frankly, a lot of help from a lot of finance people. The other issue is, even if you do know what your lifetime customer value is, you probably can't afford to wait the full life of that customer to receive that return on the investment. So what I want to give you right now is a simple 3-step strategy for knowing how to set a marketing budget and how to actually deploy that budget. Now, step 1 of this strategy is I want you to think about budgeting about 10 to 30% of your company's gross margin. In other words, if we take what you are generating from a top line revenue perspective, take out what it actually costs you to fulfill your product and your service, cost of goods sold, COGS. So, if you're a physical products company, you would take out the cost of the product. If you're selling a service, the direct cost to fulfill that. All right, so we've got our gross margin, and you want to budget a minimum of 10% of gross margin on marketing. That's usually just to maintain flat growth, right? No growth at all. And the higher you can push that up, obviously the better. Now, the goal should be to get to a 30% budget based on gross margin. And hey, maybe over time, you can raise some capital, be able to pour more onto the fire. So, good rule of thumb for how to think about your marketing budget. Now that you know your budget, let's talk about how you spend it. And that's where step 2 comes into play. Now with step 2, I want you to stack rank all of your different acquisition channels, all right? So if you think about if you're leveraging Facebook and Instagram ads, maybe you're trying, Google search, maybe generally what you're spending, you've hired an SEO consultant, stuff like that. Maybe you're working with outside channels. Think about all the different channels that you use to acquire new customers, and I want you to stack rank them. But I don't want you to stack rank them based on general ROI, based on general return on investment. Instead, stack rank them based on which of these channels is gonna pay back the fastest. In other words, we're not looking at total ROI, we're looking at payback, period. This is so important because when you're a bootstrap business, an entrepreneur, again, you can't afford to wait. Maybe there's a particular channel that you look at and you go, wow, this is getting us a 10-to-1 ROI. For every dollar we put in, we're getting $10 back. The problem is it takes 2 years to ROI that investment. Well, again, that could be great if you're a massive public company or have all kinds of funding and you can wait 2 years. But if you can't, and let's face it, most of us can't, the goal should not be to maximize the return on investment. The goal should be to maximize the rate at which we receive that return. That's what's known as payback, period. And the reason we want to do this is the faster the money comes in, the faster we can deploy it, the faster we can get our growth flywheel spinning. Once you've done that, you can move on to step 3. For step 3, what we're simply gonna do is we're going to max out the investment of the channels, starting with the ones that are at the top of that stack rank, all right? So we know if there's this particular Instagram ad campaign that basically we make our money back in 48 hours, you're gonna wanna put as much of your budget into that campaign as you possibly can, as long as it's generating a positive return on investment. When you have budget left over, again, we go down to the next one and the next one. If you've ever been to like a wedding or some kind of fancy dinner and they have one of these whole pyramid of stacked up champagne glasses, and they'll pop open a bottle of champagne and they'll start pouring it into the top glass, and then once that top glass fills, it overflows into the next row. Keep getting champagne bottles until all of the glasses are filled. So when you think about your channels, the different ways that you have of acquiring customers, those are the levels of champagne glasses in your pyramid. And when you think about your marketing budget, that's the champagne in the bottle, right? When you run out of champagne bottles to pour, well, that simply means some of the channels didn't get filled, and that's okay. Because here's what's gonna happen if you do this. If you continue to invest in what's paying back the fastest, the money goes back in, you're going to grow. And as your company grows, as your revenue increases, as your margins increase, as you have growth and you create more margin, you can begin to increase the percentage that you're investing, which means there's a lot of bottles flowing in, a lot of champagne glasses getting filled, and a lot of growth for you. So that is the 3-step process for setting and executing a marketing budget. But what if you want to scale even faster? What if you want to make this go even faster? Well, there's 2 things that you can do. Number 1 is you can increase your average customer value. So if you test increasing your prices, adding upsells, cross-sells, doing things to make your average customer value higher, well, guess what? The payback is going to come even faster. You can also begin to allocate a higher percentage of that gross margin. Again, maybe you go from 10% to 15%, 20%. Maybe you go and secure outside investment, right? If you know that this is spinning and you just need bigger bottles and you don't want to have to wait as long for that payback period to come, well, maybe you go and secure some growth capital. Again, more bottles, more champagne. So those are 3 ways that you can get it going faster. Increasing your average customer value, allocating a higher percentage, and just flat getting more budget. Here's what I don't want you to focus on too much. All right, what a lot of marketers do, what a lot of entrepreneurs do is they say, if only we could spend less, right? If only we could reduce our cost per clicks. If only we could reduce the commissions that we pay to our affiliates and our referral partners, then we would have more to spend. Not a good idea, my friend. Number 1, many of these costs are very fixed, they're established, and frankly, if you try to spend less, you're gonna wind up with nothing. Also, it's just hard, right? It's really, really hard to figure out how can we spend less. Far better to figure out how can we earn more? How can we figure out how to be able to afford to adjust the economics of our business such that we can spend even more and get that flywheel going. Now, one last tip. Now, how do I set a test budget? Here's how you do that. How much is a customer worth if you just have one? If you've got a product and it sells for $500, or you've got a service and it sells for $10,000, I want you to set your test budget at a minimum of what one customer is worth. Here's why. If you can run this test and get just one customer, then guess what? You're gonna break even, right? Now, if you're feeling a little bit more ambitious, maybe you wanna double it, triple it, but that is a good kind of guideline, good gauge to know where do I set and establish a test budget. All right, so you know how to set a marketing budget, you know how to deploy a marketing budget, and you also know how to set a test budget. Take the next big step in growing your business. I'll see you there.